covering all 4 major sports in the District of Champions. It's the DC Crossover Podcast with your hosts, Mike Cerrone and Ben Simpson.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the DC Crossover, episode 133. I am one half of your host. I am Ben Simpson. Mike Cerrone not joining us this evening. Unfortunately, his voice went out. And for anyone who knows Mike, that is a travesty because the guy loves to talk. And so I think the happiest person probably this evening is his girlfriend, who doesn't have to hear him share any opinions tonight during the football game. So hopefully Mike's voice will return next week, but the show must go on. So I will be your host this evening. Got a lot of different things to touch on. Of course, the Commanders game the other day. We got the Sean Taylor fiasco memorial. And as well as, a little bit on the Wiz and kind of their latest run. But yeah, this will be a abbreviated show today. A lot to get to. But before we dive into the sports side of things, of course, this past Thursday was Thanksgiving, and I found a list. Oh, by the way, you can follow us on all social media. I almost forgot. On Twitter, at the DC Crossover and at Cerrone16 are the 2 Twitter accounts there. And, of course, follow the show on TikTok. Mike does a great job getting the clips up there. DC Crossover Podcast on the talk. So, as I was saying, when it comes to Thanksgiving, I enjoy the discourse every year about different dishes and the food. There's this stigma that has grown over the years. Anti-turkey talk has really risen on Twitter now. I'm seeing a lot of people are against turkey, and they're like, oh, ham's so much better, or chicken's better, or they're throwing out these outrageous options. Turkey, to me, is still just going to be the classic. Yes, are there probably better meats out there? Sure. But turkey and Thanksgiving are synonymous. You pour some gravy on there, you make it work. So I will not accept any turkey slander here. But I did find this list from NJ.com, NewJersey.com, and if any place knows food, it's New Jersey, I think. And they go through 13 different Thanksgiving food, and they rank them. I have not looked at this list, so I want to go through here, and I'll give you some of my thoughts as far as this list goes. And, of course, when Mike returns to the show, I'll be interested to hear what he has to say. So we will start with number 13, green bean casserole. Definitely not a fan favorite. It's one of those things where you kind of feel like you got to throw something green on the plate because there's so much starch and all these other things you're rolling with on Thanksgiving plate. So you get the green bean casserole. That assignment is not a very coveted assignment, I would say. It's not really something that anyone really wants to throw together, a green bean casserole. There's always kind of this weird white sauce with it. Kind of looks like puke. Not one of my favorites. Number 12, dinner rolls. Yeah, I think as a fat guy, rolls are a pleasure because it's always like whatever your meal is plus an additional 700 carbs or 700 calories from these bread rolls that you can kind of use, and you can sop up different things. For me, the bread rolls, I don't know. There's nothing like a nice warm roll for Thanksgiving. I did cornbread one year. That added kind of a nice different flavor to the Thanksgiving plate. But yeah, you get the rolls. You don't have to overcomplicate it. Get some of the baked rolls, and you stick them in the oven, bake them up, and then have them ready to go. You dip it in the gravy, whatever. So I understand why rolls wouldn't be higher on this list because it is so kind of insignificant. And I do kind of appreciate them putting it higher than green bean casserole. Number 11, cornbread casserole. So I assume they're referring to like corn pudding. It might be another way to put it. I actually made that this year for the first time, and I thought it turned out pretty good. I didn't mind it. I was never a big corn pudding guy, but this year I was in charge of it. I did it. I put it together. It tastes like, corn and bread, and, there's some cream in there, so it's a little bit creamy, and Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So I agree with them so far here, having them down there at 11. Maybe even put rolls ahead of cornbread casserole, to be honest. Number 10, cranberry sauce. I'm not a cranberry guy. This is not something I'm into. I would put them at the bottom of the list. It's just, I don't get it. It's just not my thing. Why do they look like little hamburger patties? I never understood that. Don't love it. They put cranberry sauce fresh and cranberry sauce canned at 10 and 9. So throw that list out. Number 8, gravy. Yeah, gravy's the way to go. And here's the thing, you can get as fancy as you want with the creation of the gravy, but honestly, there's some canned gravy out there that you're not really going to be able to beat. There's some really, really solid canned gravy or jarred gravy, whatever. You warm it up, and it works just as well as if you put in all the time to put together other type of gravy, a homemade gravy. And gravy's kind of key. And I think, especially for those who have turkey on their menu for Thanksgiving, as you should, you can say, "Oh, it's a dry meat," or it's boring meat, whatever. That's why gravy is a part of this thing. You pour the gravy on the turkey, you pour the gravy on the mashed potatoes, on the stuffing. Gravy really pulls everything together. Love it. Number 7, turkey. So that's pretty wild. They have turkey down at 7, right above gravy. I don't know if I fully agree. I'd maybe put turkey a little bit higher because I think it is so important to the Thanksgiving meal. But yeah, I'm a turkey guy. I'm not going to slander it whatsoever. You fry it, bake it, whatever you want to do. I'm a fan. Number 6, macaroni and cheese. So I am also a big mac and cheese guy. I made the mac and cheese this year. I'm a fan. This seems a little low to me. I think you ask most people, they'd probably put the mac and cheese in the top 5. But then there's also some people that don't even eat mac and cheese on Thanksgiving. And for those people, I'm sorry. Number 5 on this list, sweet potatoes. I do like the sweet potato casserole where they do the marshmallows and the brown sugar and things like that. Sweet potatoes, it's always going to be a good addition to the plate. Mashed potatoes at number 4. Yeah, I mean, I love mashed potatoes. You get throw some butter on there, some gravy on there. That's the way to go. Number 3, pumpkin pie. Don't care. Honestly, don't care about pies whatsoever. Number 2, and this is probably where I feel like Mike will be the angriest I've ever seen him, is fruit pie is number 2 on Thanksgiving Foods That Matter ranked from NJ.com. This is unbelievable. So we're talking about fruit pie being above. First of all, I've never had fruit pie on Thanksgiving, never even seen it on Thanksgiving, so that's wild. But for fruit pie to be above mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, sweet potatoes, turkey is, automatically invalidates everything this person's had to say. And then number 1 is stuffing. Yeah, I love stuffing. I don't know if I'd put it at number 1. I'd if I were to put my top 3, and then we'll move on to the rest of the show for Thanksgiving dishes. And feel free to share your opinions at the DC Crossover on Twitter. I feel like I would go. I feel like I would go turkey number 1 because I think it is a big part of it. I'd probably put mashed potatoes number 2, and then maybe mac and cheese 3, gravy 4, stuffing 5. Like, I think that's my starting 5. But yeah, for fruit pie to be number 2 on this list, it's one of the saddest things that you'll hear all day, and I'm pretty depressed from that one. NJ.com's list there, Thanksgiving. You'd be hard pressed to find any other list that puts fruit pie. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Let's get into the rewind. Chance just to, in case you missed some of the games throughout the previous week in DC sports, this is where we can kind of fill in the gaps for you and tell you what went on. Starting with the Caps. The Caps, of course, now 9-11-3, 11th place in the Met. Not a great season so far for Washington, but plenty of games left to go. This was a pretty good week, though. 2-1 on the week, starting with a win over the Flyers, 3-2 in OT on Wednesday. Alexander Ovechkin scores his 790th NHL career goal, 11 behind Gordie Howe for second on the career goals list. TJ Oshie came back for this one after missing the past 11 games and collected a couple assists in that one as the Caps win 3-2 in overtime. Following that up on Friday, beating the Flames 3-0. Nice shutout for Dallas Kemper, his second of the season. Alexander Ovechkin scores, TJ Oshie scores. Each of them had a goal and an assist. Ovi now 9 goals away from 800 and now 10 behind Gordie Howe. And then the final game of this stretch here, losing to the Devils 5-1. You had Jack Hughes, a first career hat trick, the young gun from New Jersey. You had Vitek Vanacek, an old friend, making 38 saves against his former team. John Carlson scores the lone Caps goal, and Lindgren for the Caps allows 5 goals on 29 shots. So a 2-1 week for the Caps. Let's move things to the Washington Wizards, who are now 10-10, 8th place in the Eastern Conference. 20 games in, you're about a quarter of the way through the season. A lot left to be played. Not a good week for the Wiz Kids. 0-3 on the week, starting with the loss against Miami, 113-105. Kyle Kuzma, 33 points. KP with 21, but no Beal, no Rui in this one, and a tough loss to Miami. And then they had to play Miami again a couple days later. You lose again, this time a lot closer, 110-107. Bam Adebayo, I watched this whole game, monster game from him, 38 points. The Wizards really didn't have an answer. You had multiple times where Adebayo gets it around the rim, and KP just moves out of the way and lets Adebayo just dunk it in his face. Sometimes they would foul him and get an and one. Big game from him. You did have Bradley Beal with a pretty good game, a pretty good look at the end, but misses a shot at the buzzer. KP, 18 points on this one. The Wiz started off hot. This was a good start. 15 of their first 21 shots went in, but losing 110-107. And then over the weekend, losing to the Celtics, 130-121. No Tatum for the Celtics, but Jaylen Brown, 36-point night. Big one for him. Bradley Beal, 30 points. KP, 21. Kyle Kuzma out in this one with lower back pain. And the Wiz bench outscored 46-36. An 0-3 week. Hopefully this week things will improve. And then, of course, the Commanders, as we get into some football talk, our first of the evening.
We are the Commanders.
Washington Commanders now 7-5 overall, 7th place in the NFC, which puts them in the playoffs, which puts all 4 NFC East teams in the playoffs if the season ended today. Wild. Mike and I talked a little bit about this last week, but to have 4 teams from the same division in the playoffs is bananas. I mean, I know you sometimes see it, and it's really incomparable to other sports because, like, incomparable, I don't know how you say it. Obviously, NBA, the divisions don't really matter. It's all about the conferences. MLB is about as close as you could get to this, where we've seen multiple teams from the same division. You know, one team wins a division, maybe a couple teams sneak into the wild card. You sometimes see that. We used to see it in the NL West sometimes, where the Dodgers would kind of run away with the division, but then maybe the Padres would sneak in, or one of the other teams there. In the NL East, even with the Nats, Phillies, Braves all kind of being relevant, you'll see that. But to have all 4 teams potentially be in the playoffs is crazy. And who knows if that will hold up. But for now, that's where things look. As the Commanders beat the Falcons 19-13 in a game that you kind of go in expecting to win for the most part. I mean, the Falcons aren't terrible, but they're also not great. And they're no Texans. But at the same time, you're at home. Yeah, the weather kind of sucks. But you kind of figure this was a game. The Commanders are riding a nice win streak. Kind of figure this is a game you should win, and they did win. A lot of running the ball here. Run the ball 37 times for 176 yards. One of the biggest stars of the day, Brian Robinson Jr., 18 carries, 105 yards, a touchdown. A great touchdown, too. I mean, he bulldozed at least 3 guys, I think, on that touchdown. Taylor Heineke, Mike's favorite quarterback, 14 of 23 for 138 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I mean, that is a signature Heineke game there. A couple nice plays, you get a couple touchdowns, you also throw a pick, a bad pick, and then you throw under 150 yards. Like, that is Taylor Heineke to a T. And to his credit, they continue to keep winning. And that's been obviously a discussion on this program and on a lot of programs here in the district is the Taylor Heineke conundrum. The kind of consensus at this point has been, at least from some of the more logical people out there, has been it's obviously a situation where you can't take Heineke out. I mean, the team's winning. You can't put him on the bench right now and start Carson Wentz. Like, you'll have a revolution on your hands. It's just not possible. But you do have a little bit of that comfort in that if Heineke's luck does finally run out, which it will, I have no doubt of that, you do have a very decent quarterback with proven success waiting in the wings in Carson Wentz. And, I'm sure Wentz doesn't want to necessarily be that guy, but at the same time, he may have to because I just think, and I'm not rooting for anyone's downfall. And obviously, we've said on this show, the Heineke story is a great one. There's a lot to like there. He seems like a good guy. You love the buying the cleats of the color of the team you just beat, and he'll post it on Instagram or whatever, and the fans get into it. You love that. You love to root for the guy. What Mike and I's gripe has been over the time on the show is there seems to be a level of adoration for Taylor Heineke in that he is being put into the realm of the greats in the NFL, like quarterback, or this team is only winning because of his magnificent feats and things like that. And I would just argue Taylor Heineke is doing enough to get these wins. But you even just look at these stats and what he's doing. I mean, even Alex Smith was giving you a little bit more than this. I mean, he's throwing 130 yards here and there. He's always getting a pick and a bad throw in the mix. There are mistakes being made that some team is going to take advantage of that at some point. It's shocking that some of these teams aren't. But at some point, the luck is going to run out, and that is when the team is going to need to turn and say, Carson Wentz, there's a reason we brought you in here is because we thought you were the number one guy. It didn't work out that way for this stretch, but you are still a number one guy. Carson Wentz is not a backup in the NFL. I know he is technically like right now, but his skill set is he's good enough to be starting in the NFL. And if it's not going to continue to be with Washington, hey, maybe he'll go to Detroit or I don't know. But Carson Wentz is a starting quarterback in this league, and Taylor Heineke, while he has been starting and has been collecting some wins and things like that, and let's remember 1 second that wins are not a be-all, end-all stat for that people are quoting it as for quarterbacks. I mean, there's so many more. Just like in baseball, when it comes to wins and losses, you can't read too much into it for a pitcher in baseball because there's so many factors outside of his control. Obviously, the pitcher, especially in leagues with DH, the pitcher has no control over what his offense is doing that day. All he can do is control himself. So a pitcher can throw a 2-0 gem, but his team put up nothing and he loses, and that's a loss on his resume, even if he allowed 2 runs on 3 hits, something like that. I mean, that's a great day, great outing, and he gets a loss, and then suddenly you're talking about that. Oh, he's a loser. He got a loss or something like that. I mean, that's the thing with DeGrom before the Mets were good is Jacob DeGrom would go 500 with his wins and losses with like a 2 ERA. And I think you're kind of it's kind of a similar thing in the NFL where you can't use that as a big judgment of skill. And I think a lot of people are getting carried away with, the Commanders are, whatever the record is under Taylor Heineke at this point. And they were this under Wentz or this under that. And there's so much more that goes into a win than Taylor Heineke's performance. And we've said it, the Commanders are winning in spite of Taylor Heineke in reality. Like, that is the reality of the situation is they are winning in spite of him. And if a mistake or two there, if he makes a mistake or two additional to what he's already made, the mistakes he's making on the field, this team would probably have definitely more losses than they do right now. And so you give him credit for the plays that he does make. You give him credit for the fact that he is a locker room favorite. He seems to be. They like him. Obviously, he's a likable guy. But let's not give him the shoulder of the wins. I mean, Kendall Fuller's getting pick sixes, and we're giving credit to Taylor Heineke. Or Fuller, again, amazing pick at the end of the last game. And suddenly, there's a reason why the win is in the win column, and it's not necessarily Taylor Heineke. I just think we need to look at his actual stats, his actual performance, and be happy that the team's winning. But let's remember that he is more of a career backup than he is a career starter in the NFL. That is a fact. By the way, Wild, I mean, how dumb can you be at the end of that game with the Falcons where they did exactly what they needed to do? They made the Commanders go 3-and-out. They were potentially going to get the ball back with some time on the clock. It wasn't going to be a situation where you had a lot of time to work with, but you give your team a chance and you run into the kicker, you run into the punter in that situation. It's like, how stupid can you be to do that? That boggled my mind for sure in that one because it's like, you're trying to give your team a chance, and you just lost the game like that. A weird game, rainy, a lot of run game. It went by pretty quick because of all the running. So the other big topic here, and we have to talk about it, is the Sean Taylor memorial. So obviously you've seen it. You're listening to the show. You're a fan of sports, and you've seen it. Because Sunday's home game was the 15th anniversary of the day Taylor was killed. And so Washington announced that there was going to be this memorial unveiled for the 15th anniversary. They had tweeted this out. This Sunday marks the 15th anniversary of Sean Taylor's passing. We will honor him throughout the day. And the schedule that they put out was 11 a.m. team store, exclusive Sean Taylor merchandise collection drops. Cool. Like that. 11:45, Sean Taylor permanent memorial installation unveiled at section 132 at 11:45 a.m. Now, when you initially read Sean Taylor permanent memorial installation unveiled, there's some things that go through your mind, right? When you and you could even do this at home. You could close your eyes and you could picture what could a memorial installation look like for a player. There's a lot of different ways. A lot of different ways you could picture that. You maybe when you close your eyes, you picture like a really cool plaque or one of those like busts or with the head where it's like made out of plaster or something, and it's kind of like the face of Sean Taylor, and it looks really cool, and maybe or a statue even. That sounds awesome, doesn't it? I mean, think about this: a Sean Taylor statue making a tackle or just making a big play, whatever. Some sort of really cool, like a statue and a memorial, remembrance, etc. For Taylor, I think like when you're saying it's a permanent memorial installation, I'm going to keep saying that because that's the words they used. Those are the types of things that come to mind, and if you haven't seen the pictures yet, do yourself a favor and look up the installation that they put together because it is I don't even really fully understand how to describe it. It's like a wire frame, and I'm bringing up the pictures again because I have to look at this again. It's this wire frames with the jersey, the pants, the helmet, socks, cleats, and so you found his laundry, and he hung it up. Is kind of how I would describe it, and I think everyone who has looked at it, and you've seen the discourse on Twitter and things like that, is people aren't happy because when you think about this guy and how beloved Sean Taylor is to this franchise, I mean, any Washington sports fan, loved this guy, and especially after his passing too. It's just like he was such a symbol for this franchise and this team, and obviously taken away from the fan. I mean, obviously his family, but like for the fans, they felt like it was a family member being killed, and the team and Daniel Snyder continue to just never get anything right ever. Because you could think, when you think of these installations, you're thinking of maybe him making an interception. I mean, Sean Taylor maybe leaping in the air to intercept a ball, or tackling a running back, or any of those sorts of things. And instead, you have some clothes hanging on wires. You go into my closet right now, which you can see behind me. I've got basically the level of installation that they did with Sean Taylor. There's no extra detail. There's no extra, elaborate colors or designs or anything. It is a uniform on wires. And there's a couple other gripes with this. And one, it's Nike branded. Taylor would have worn a Reebok jersey. You've probably seen this. Nike didn't even make NFL jerseys until 2012, which was 5 years after Sean Taylor died. The pants are Reebok. Kind of weird. You have Nike jersey, which it shouldn't even be. Then you have Reebok pants. That's a strange decision. I mean, they should be Reebok. Why is the jersey Nike? You have the soccer cleats, and the gripe is not that he's wearing soccer cleats, because you'll have a million people on Twitter say he wore soccer cleats. He liked soccer cleats. His daughter even said she was happy about that, and that's great. I'm not knocking that. I think that's awesome. If his family is happy with it, then at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. But these are things we have to point out. And the shoes are the black Adidas soccer cleats. And you go back in the Sean Taylor history, pictures and things like that, he's mainly shown in Nike soccer cleats. So why is he wearing Adidas soccer cleats? And then you have another gripe that people have been saying is, why is it not a taped face mask as well? Because this is something that he's kind of known for. There's guys that are inspired by that will tape their masks and things like that. This is something that you could have done and could have been that extra touch. But that is the big issue with this team, is everything feels rushed and last minute. Everything feels like, I'll tell you a story. When I was in middle school, we had to do science fair projects. And it came around every year. You had to do a science fair project. And for 1 year, I think it was 7th or 8th grade, I had decided that I was going to wait for some reason until it was the final weekend, where the science fair project was due on Monday, and Saturday I think I waltzed into the kitchen and told my mom and dad, hey guys, by the way, I need to make a science fair project. And keep in mind, these are supposed to be experiments that are happening over months of time, and you're measuring and you're getting results and you're tweaking things and you're testing out all these different things. Like, that is the point of a science experiment, is the amount of time it takes. So I ended up I was like, well, we got to figure out something, because I got to turn something in. And so I think I came up with some sort of experiment where it's like, I'm going to see how people remember things with different letters or different colors for the words. And like, I just went around to my neighbors and like was like, hey, remember this. And like, it's in blue. And then like, here's the results. I boiled down what should have been months of work into a weekend and turned it in. Obviously, probably didn't get a good grade. And that is what I think of when I look at everything this franchise does. It is the science fair project the day before it's due. This installation is, I mean, how long did it take for them to think of this? Imagine what ideas they didn't use. If this is the idea that they thought was good, what did they think was bad? That's what I want to know, because this is not good. And then it goes back to, remember last year there was going to be an honoring of Sean Taylor, and it was when they were going to put the number on the field or whatever, and they announced it on Thursday with the game being Sunday, and they were like, "Yeah, we're going to be doing this, honoring of Sean Taylor on Sunday," and it was like, "Why are you telling us now?" Eh, when the game's in 3 days, fans need to buy tickets. They need to plan to go to the game. Like, there are a lot of fans that wanted to go to the game and probably didn't have the time because you're telling them 72 hours before kickoff. And a lot of people were figuring this might just be someone trying to cover up what's going on with Daniel Snyder at the time. And they tried to cover it up. Jason Wright was trying to cover it up by saying, like, "Oh, well, we were just trying to keep it a secret. We did this on purpose. We've been planning this for weeks," and was surprised when people were pissed because they were given no time to travel to the game. And so this is just what this franchise does: is they make gut reaction decisions or quick decisions that don't take a lot of thinking, or they don't think it all the way through, and they're like, "Oh, this might look good. Let's do this." And or even if I'd be saddened to think that this took a lot of thinking, like they spent a lot of time in this, and this is what they came up with. But when all of your fans are unhappy, look, people are going to be with a lot of different things. You're always going to have people that are going to criticize something. They're going to find something to be mad about. Like, that is a given. But when the anger is like 75 to 80% of the fan base, that's when you know you're doing something wrong. And it happens like this every single time. Every single time, it's the same old. Well, it used to be same old Redskins, but now it's like same old Commanders, Washington football team, whatever. So, this is what they do. They screw up. They never make things easy. They never stay out of the news. It's always a look what these guys did. They screwed up this. They messed up that. Here we go again, and then on to the next screw up. And that seems to happen every single time. And so I think when I look at the Sean Taylor wire hanger incident, I think of it as here is another to add to the list of Daniel Snyder from the top down, a absolute BS organization that just can never get things right. You think things are going to change. Oh, they fired all this different personnel, and oh, they brought in Jason Wright. He knows what's going on, and they change all these things. It doesn't change. Nothing ever changes with this team. There is always going to be another screw up, and that continues to happen day after day. And that's what Sunday was, because yeah, you can get nitpicky. I got nitpicky about certain aspects. Oh, the pants or the shirt or whatever. Bottom line is, you got to do better. You're not going to please everybody. You got to do better. There's got to be a better way to honor the guy than what you did. And maybe it means you need to consult more people or get new personnel in or something, but it's just not happening over there, and you got to figure it out. Let's move on. Chase Young, of course, was ruled out before the game on Sunday. Hopefully, he'll play against New York. The NFC standings right now, NFC East standings, Eagles 10-1, Cowboys 8-3, Giants 7-4, Commanders 7-5. Next game away in New York against the Giants. Winnable game against the Giants. Things getting interesting. Let's hit up the final lap as we near the end of this shorter episode of the show. Some bigger stories in sports. Here we go. First up, U.S. versus Iran on Tuesday. Simple as this. Win and you're in. This is going to be a big one. I cannot wait. Speaking of soccer, Lionel Messi was originally rumored to possibly come to the MLS for Miami. His camp came out. They denied those rumors. Probably comes down to a money thing. They're trying to get the biggest paycheck possible. He will be the highest paid MLS player if he does come over. Josh Jacobs set Raiders franchise season single game record for 303 all-purpose yards, 229 rushing yards, including 48 fantasy points. and the guy I played had Josh Jacobs. Unbelievable day for him. You had this Russell Wilson Broncos blow up. You had Mike Purcell, defensive tackle, kind of going at Russ, and it's just a mess there in Denver. I mean, so many Broncos fans were so excited heading into this year about not only Russ, but hey, this could the Broncos be like a legit contender and all these sorts of things. And it's just been a disaster there. They're yelling at each other. That's obviously always a sign of things going off the rails. And then you had Matt Rule being signed by Nebraska, I think 8-year deal. And good college coach. Obviously, Temple and things like that. Like he's a good college coach. He's should be able to turn around that program for the most part. I mean, this is when you look at the Big Ten. I mean, Nebraska, especially you look at this year. Like Nebraska had every opportunity to, if they were a little bit better, possibly win that side of the conference and go to the conference championship. I mean that's how weak that side of the pile is. So hopefully, Nebraska, good football fan base. Shout out to Ian who listens, and hopefully they can turn things around. Let's head over to the money line, sponsored by DraftKings. The wait is over. DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps, is officially live in Maryland. Now you can legally bet on all your favorite sports with DraftKings anytime and anywhere, right there in Maryland. For a limited time, new customers who sign up with promo code DC Crossover will receive $200 in free bets instantly. That's big. DraftKings has the best features, including same-game parlays, unlimited player props, and more, with fast and easy payouts right at your fingertips. DraftKings Sportsbook is where Mike and I both go for all of our sports betting needs. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DC Crossover to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code DC Crossover. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER. You must be 21 years or older, physically present in Maryland. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Bonus issued as free bets. See DraftKings.com/MD for full terms and conditions. Thank you to our sponsor, DraftKings. I made a little bit of ground back. I mean, I'm still 10-14 here for this round. Mike 16-8. I gotta find some good picks here, and I feel comfortable with these. My lock, I'm going over 2.5 goals in the USA-Iran game. It's a plus 135. That is my lock. Over 2.5 goals in that one. My dog, I'm going LSU plus 17.5 versus Georgia for college football. I don't need to explain it. That's just my pick, okay? Mike's pick of the week, he's going over 2.5 goals in the Argentina and Poland game is his lock, and his dog, Miami plus 3.5 at San Francisco. Those are our money line picks, sponsored by DraftKings. Again, promo code DC Crossover. $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. That about does it for this episode 133. Again, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We should be back with Mike next week if his voice recovers. It's a travesty if Mike Cerrone can't talk. And the NFL season continues barreling towards an exciting conclusion here in the regular season. We'd love, obviously it's good for this show, if the Commanders make the playoffs. That looks like it's a possibility. And we'll see what happens there. The Wiz Kids continue to kind of be a 500 type team. They'll have good weeks. They'll have bad weeks. I really am interested to see where they go with any sort of decision making around trades or things like that. There's got to be some pieces out there that if this team is in the top 5 in the conference come playoff time that you kind of want to help them make a big push. I don't know. It's still early. Still about a quarter of the way of the season. And you love what you've gotten out of Kuz and KP and Beal, but you could use another guy, maybe a sharpshooter off the bench, maybe a really good wing defender, something like that. Keep an eye on. And then the Caps, of course, trying to find their footing as well. You can tell the age really catching up to them, but it's early in the NHL season as well. So that about does it for episode 133. Again, I encourage you to check everything out on social media at the DC Crossover on Twitter and at Cerrone16 for Mike's Twitter account and on TikTok at DC Crossover Podcast. I am Ben Simpson. We will see you next week. This has been another episode of the DC Crossover. Good night, everybody.